Okay, let's be honest. We've all been there. You're stuck in a meeting, you're in the middle of a great movie, or you're just way too comfortable on the couch. I'm talking about holding it in. It feels like such a harmless little thing, right? But what if I told you that putting off that trip to the bathroom could have some seriously nasty long-term consequences? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on what's really happening inside your body when you decide to just wait. To really understand how serious this can get, we're going to kick things off with a true story. Now, this is definitely an extreme case, but wow, does it perfectly show what our bodies are put through when pushed to the absolute breaking point. I mean, listen to this quote. It just perfectly sums up the horrifying journey an actress went through on what was supposed to be a routine work trip. What started as a simple boat ride turned into a battle against her own biology. You can just feel the progression, right? From that familiar gotta go feeling to searing pain and then to this scary, unsettling numbness. So picture this. She was told the boat trip in Thailand would be like 30 minutes tops. No problem, she probably thought. I can hold it. But then, out of nowhere, a massive storm rolls in. Suddenly, they're stranded at sea for 10 agonizing hours with absolutely no bathroom in sight. For 10 straight hours, her body was screaming at her. And this is where the story takes a really bizarre turn. You'd think the second she got the all clear, it would be a huge relief, right? Nope. When she was finally able to go, she couldn't. For 10 whole minutes, her body just refused. It had been in emergency mode for so long that the muscles completely seized up. It was like her internal wiring just fried. And the trauma didn't just end when she stepped off that boat. Not by a long shot. For years after that one incident, she battled chronic UTIs, found blood in her urine, and just felt like her entire immune system was shot. It just goes to show you, pushing your body that far isn't something it just forgets. So, what is actually happening in there when we hold it in? I mean, to really get the dangers, we have to understand the basic mechanics first, right? So let's pop the hood and take a quick look at how your bladder works. The easiest way to think about your bladder is like a stretchy, muscular balloon. It's a pretty amazing piece of engineering, actually. Its main job is to hang on to the urine that comes down from your kidneys. And once it starts to fill up, it sends these little text messages to your brain that say, hey, might be time to find a bathroom. So how big are we talking? Well, a healthy adult bladder can hold about 500 milliliters, which is roughly 2 cups of liquid. But here's the cool part. Your body is smart. It doesn't wait until you're at 100% capacity to warn you. That first little nudge, that, I should probably think about going soon feeling, that usually kicks in when you're only about halfway full. But of course, one size does not fit all. While adults are in that 500 milliliter range, a kid's bladder is way smaller, and there's actually a neat little formula you can use to estimate it, which you can see right here. It's a really important reminder that kids aren't just mini adults. Their whole system is built to a different scale. Okay, so now we know how it's supposed to work. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what happens when we consistently ignore those signals from our brain. We're going to break down the 5 biggest, most serious problems that can come from making holding it in a habit. And here they are, the big 5. We're talking everything from nasty infections to permanent structural damage. And you'll see how each one can kind of lead to the next, creating this downward spiral of health issues. All right, first up, UTIs. This is probably the one you've heard of. Think about it. When you let urine just sit there for hours, it's like leaving a puddle of stagnant water out in the sun. It becomes the perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Nasty stuff like E. coli can just party in there, multiply, and cause those awful burning infections that, if you're not careful, can travel all the way up to your kidneys. Remember our balloon analogy? Well, if you keep overinflating a balloon again and again, what happens? It gets all stretched out and saggy. It loses that snapback. The exact same thing can happen to your bladder. That strong muscle gets weak, and then it can't squeeze properly to get all the urine out. And that's a recipe for even more problems. And here is the absolute irony of the whole situation. The very muscles you're using to clench and hold everything in, like that little gatekeeper muscle, the urethral sphincter, you can actually damage them from overuse. You weaken them to the point where they can't do their job anymore, which can lead to leaks and incontinence. So the act of trying so hard to not pee can eventually make you unable to stop yourself from peeing. Crazy, right?
But the damage doesn't just stop at the bladder and its immediate neighbors. This whole holding it in thing can create a ripple effect that spreads throughout the body, and it can affect different people in very different ways.
As you can see pretty clearly here, when it comes to risk, it is not an even playing field. Women are way more likely to get UTIs, and it's not their fault. It's just basic anatomy. A woman's urethra is much shorter, which means bacteria have a much shorter commute to get from the outside world into the bladder to cause trouble. And for women, the problems can get even more complicated. A bladder that's always full can literally start pushing other organs around, like the uterus. This can cause pain and even make period cramps worse. And the overall stress on the body can lead to some wild stuff: high blood pressure, headaches, and even a condition where your blood pressure drops so fast after you finally go that you can actually faint. Now, let's pivot and talk about our kids. We all know a kid who's so busy playing, they just forget to go to the bathroom. But when those accidents or infections start happening over and over, you have to ask, could it be a sign of something bigger going on? And the answer is a big, resounding yes. For children, if you're seeing UTIs pop up again and again, we're talking 2 in 6 months or 3 in a year, that's a major red flag. It can actually be a sign that there's an underlying structural issue they were born with, and that's something you definitely want a doctor to check out to avoid any long-term kidney problems. Okay, after all that doom and gloom, I've got some good news. You can absolutely take back control and improve your bladder health. So let's wrap up with some real practical strategies you can use, from long-term training to some in-the-moment tricks.
If you're someone who feels like you have to go all the time, there's this fantastic technique called bladder retraining. The idea isn't to hold it for hours on end, but to teach your bladder to send you signals at more normal intervals. It's a 4-step process. First, just notice the urge, don't panic. Second, distract your brain with something. Third, do a few quick Kegels to calm the muscle down. And finally, you just try to wait 5 more minutes, slowly building up that time until you're going every 2 to 3 hours.
And for the rest of us, it's really about building better habits. If you're in a pinch, crossing your legs really does help. On a busy day, try to schedule your breaks. But the biggest thing is to just listen to your body and go when you get that first signal. And of course, staying hydrated is key, but maybe lay off the coffee and booze, which can make your bladder extra twitchy. So if you take one thing away from all of this, let it be this. That urge to go, it's not an annoying suggestion you can just ignore. It's a vital signal from your body. It's a message that this incredibly complex system is working just the way it's supposed to. So the only question left is, are you going to listen?